Welcome back to Equally Read Conversations. I'm Britt Campbell, and even though I'm not as pretty as Kimmy or Sydney, I will do my best, I promise. We are joined here by Jackson Dreyer.
Hey.
He is a local artist. Jackson, introduce yourself.
I moved to Nashville about 6 years ago. Just lived in the suburbs of Chicago till I was 18. Came down here to pursue music, and I'm lucky to be your friend and feel like I'm slowly becoming more of the Nashville community.
So as you know, we're kind of leading the conversation on race in the country and in society and whatever. So we have looked at two local people of color and gotten their perspectives, and we wanted to look at a white person and get their perspective on the issue, and kind of get that voice heard as well.
Sure.
So in that vein, what were your thoughts on systemic racism before it became a nationally recognized issue with the George Floyd incident and others? And then how did that differ to now?
Totally. So I think initially racism was a bit of like a boogeyman. Like I was like, I know it's out there, but I hadn't experienced it myself, and especially growing up in a predominantly white suburb north of Chicago.
Right.
Any sort of racism, I would think of the Civil War and slavery and things like that, and not really anything now. So didn't really have any black kids in my neighborhood, and the first black friend that I had, his name was Malcolm, and we played football together, and he I couldn't really understand why he was so excited about Barack Obama being elected, because I was like 12 years old, and I'm like, hey, my dad loves John McCain's economic plan, like he feels like the right guy to go with, and not saying which one was the right call, but like I didn't understand why he was so proud to see a president with a similar skin tone, kind of like how kids just really adore Black Panther for the same way. Like having that sort of representation in all levels is really important for a society that's trying to be unified in that way.
Exactly, because that's where you see growth.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just kind of stay where you are, and the problem kind of continues.
Totally.
So as you've kind of gotten more educated on what's going on, maybe a little bit of the viewpoint of like the people under oppression, have there been any situations where you've looked back and thought like, oh no, I think that I might have been an instigator of some implicit bias?
Yeah, implicit bias is an interesting thing, just like because I feel like sometimes we don't know necessarily where our head's been at until it's right in front of us. So I think it just kind of comes down to maybe not understanding the cultural hurt that things like gentrification can put on a community. And, just like, because I used to be like, oh, look at that, bunch of new buildings, without ever thinking of the families that were pushed out and, that may not have been able to afford the raising, property taxes and things like that's really hard. Things I didn't understand. My high school, when I was there, literally had a $93 million budget every year, and they didn't know what to do with it. So we already had a world-class Kennedy Performing Arts Center. So my senior year, they renovated it again to make it even better. And those are things that I was like, I feel like we have a lot of money here.
Yeah.
That I never understood, like other communities, that $2 million renovation could have done wonders for their school, but we just didn't want to lose funding that next year. So there were a lot of things that like I just didn't understand the differences in how school funding can affect things, and that obviously education is like the basis of society. So that sort of imbalance has led to a lot of fissures in our society over time.
Right. So you're looking back and you're thinking like, man, I never had that mindset. I never saw that perspective.
Yeah.
In what ways, or have you allowed that to change your viewpoint, your actions? Are there steps you're taking to kind of act differently now that you know that this is kind of the world we live in?
Sure. I think the shift started happening when I left my hometown, and I think that's the best thing that anyone can ever do is like get out of your hometown, see other things. So I came into Nashville, and I'm also playing music that every bit of its core is from Black culture, and a lot of African beats coming over on the slave ships, playing just the Black Keys, that sort of stuff. Like that's at the root of all my music. And I started to realize that when I first started releasing music, and there were a few people like, you're playing like Black music, and I was like, ooh, okay, so there's a little bit more that I need to know about what I'm doing here. Because I'm even wary of saying like I play soul music, because I know that there's so much pain or, depth to that sort of music that I don't know if my love songs is really, qualifying that sort of word.
Right.
So I've already been thinking about that, and certainly playing that kind of music. I'm around a lot of black musicians and have been led into their world a little bit and their culture. And that's been really cool. And then people loving Nashville, certainly, it's pretty split. Just all sorts of different cultures happening of people that have ended up on the streets, and learning the different reasons why that is. A lot of times there's not the same kind of safety nets for people of color. And I think that speaks to one of various issues, but generational wealth and a lack thereof. When a lot of society was the plantation owners and other things like that, it makes sense that sort of wealth would continue on throughout the generations. And that's why it is so hard, I think, for people to rise up out of the streets, and that's why, like, you hear, like, great NFL or basketball player go, like, sports kept me off the streets, and, it helped me rise above it. And it's like, it makes those sort of statements have a lot more gravity to me, where I kind of understand you can't always just bootstrap your way out of things.
Right.
And there needs to be a lot of top-down change, not just, like, betterment, but, like, let's flush it out.
Playing that kind of music and attracting that kind of, audience, you're probably around a lot of people of color, kind of on a day-to-day basis. What do you think about the mindset of, like, a white person saying, "Oh, I'm not racist because I have a lot of black friends."
Right.
You know what I mean? Or like,
totally.
I know I'm white, but I'm not part of the problem.
Yeah.
What's your kind of reaction to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are coming around to realizing that that's not okay to say, and, like, the reason why. I was thinking earlier about the whole thing of being complicit in something that's going on. And just because you have black friends doesn't mean that you haven't been complicit in a way of thinking, or even, activities or society that has, instigated structural racism. And I was thinking about, like, a baker in a bakery, and how they may come in on time, wash their hands, cut the dough perfect and all that. But if they keep seeing, like, cockroaches all over the kitchen and other people not washing their hands and all that, but they stay quiet about it, that's on them just as much as it is the other people. Like, they might be a better baker, but the bakery itself is in trouble. And like, we all got to be really good about, hey, no, you better sweep that up. You better wash your hands, get under the fingernails, things like that, where, like, yeah, you can have black friends, but you can also hurt those black friends, and they may not tell you, hey, that hurt me. Yeah. Because I have heard, and I'm sure that my black friends have put up with a lot of stuff and have just kind of swept it under the carpet a lot, which is why every single new video that comes out of, a black person being mishandled by the police and killed, is just opening up the wound again and again and again.
Right.
And, like, that's something that I'm not going to understand. I can try to empathize with, but there's only so much I can do to really understand the depth of that hurt and that the sting of the pain every time something else happens. And I think it's really special when relationships can say, "Hey, you hurt me here." Yeah. And then they can move on past that. Those are the best relationships. I know, like, great marriages are that way. You hurt me here. We're not just going to call it off because of that. Right. Like, we're actually fighting for this because we want to be together. Right. We want a society that's together. So if we can't have those sort of conversations and admit, yeah, I was wrong, and then also not cancel them for that.
The maturity to hear that and be like, okay, how can I grow?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because I think if we are constantly just believing that people, like, once we label them that they're that forever, I think that's also why racism is able to kind of fester and bubble underneath the surface.
How has your perception of your friends of color changed? And me being one of your friends of color. Yeah. I'm interested to hear your response.
Love it. Perception's an interesting word, just because, like, if I'm not thinking about any sort of, social justice movements or things like that, like, my perception really hasn't changed in that way, because, like, they're my friend, and I'm just as easily going to send you a meme as I will someone else, and things like that. But then when I am in kind of, like, in the mode of, like, trying to see how I can help move society along, that puts me in a lens of truly understanding and starting to see for the first time the hurt and the fear that things like, you know, driving down the road, driving while black, like that, I didn't know there was a fear of that. And then I'm going, oh, so my friend that I've known for years, I'm just now seeing this little tail end of the pain right now. But there's been a lot of stuff before that I wasn't really aware of. And it's made some of my appreciation of, you know, a lot of my black friends of their resolve.
Basically, you're saying like you're able to see their struggle without looking at them like they're broken or like they're a victim. So it's like every time you see them, it's not like, oh, this is my friend, the oppressed, the struggling with racism. It's like, I see that you've definitely been through things. Like, I see this part of your life, but I'm not looking at you like a child that needs to be coddled.
Oh yeah, totally. Right. Also, like, I also know that I haven't seen everything that they've been through. Right. You know, I haven't been on, you know, in the cafeteria when they were being called names because of their race and things like that. That I do know have happened. So I'm just kind of like understanding that there's more than I'm able to see as a white person. And so that's been interesting to just kind of, you know, see my friends in that light. But then at the same time, it's really wonderful, I think, to be operating in a way where I'm not thinking of my black friends as that's my black friend. Right. Where I'm just like, that's my friend. And obviously that's where we want society to go to, but we can't just do nothing and pretend that it's going to get that way. So we have to be actively anti-racist, which is a term that I think is really great, that it's picking up traction. Right. Because being anti-racist is different than being not racist. Anti-racist is, okay, are you calling local officials? Are you looking into who you're going to vote for? Are you marching in protests? Are you having the hard conversations? Are you using your platform to speak out against racist practices? Things like that. Because that's when you truly become a friend, as opposed to just kind of like a
bystander.
Just a bystander.
What do you think white people as a whole in that kind of team group effort need to do, like the actions they need to take to see lasting change? Not just like, oh, everyone's story has a black square for the next week, but like change that will take effect and that will catch on to actually change the culture of the country that we're living in.
Yeah, I think it's important to amplify black voices. Just like, I mean, although racism wasn't solved when Obama was elected, that was a huge step of, you know, we amplified a single black voice to the highest cabinet in the country, and that was huge. So then it's, are we doing that in businesses? Are we doing that, like, if I'm playing a show and there's not a single, you know, female artist on the bill, or I don't have, like, I'm not gonna necessarily seek out black musicians just for the sake of that, but there is something to be said for, if I don't have any, you know, black friends in my band when I'm playing predominantly black music, you know, that's something to look at and go, am I amplifying the voices that, you know, this is kind of their heritage, and they're bringing
created that culture.
Exactly. And they're bringing a lot of that experience into what I'm trying to draw inspiration from. So I think amplifying black voices is a big thing. This is a big thing after the tornado too, because the tornado hit North Nashville, which is predominantly a black neighborhood. And there's a lot of, you know, go to those black businesses that are out there, buy the pizza, buy their, you know, buy 2x4s at their hardware store, things like that. That was, you know, we also wanted to support those businesses, not just the new, the new taco joint that got put into a gentrified neighborhood. You know, sometimes we do need to actively make those decisions to help people that may be getting overlooked.
Well, that's all I got for you.
Sweet.
You got a new single coming out? Or it just came out?
Just came out. It's been out for a week now.
Step back. Go listen to it. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.